And welcome back to the conversation, to the constant conversation, and welcome back to the Roaches and Ramen show. Hello. Still from the state of Texas. I still am not home, but I'm really glad that I'm here with you guys today. Honestly, this podcast has become the thing that I look forward to do. Uh, Even though I'm nervous about it, I'm still glad that I'm here with you guys. And I thank everyone or anyone that has pressed play. Thank you so much. And if you're new here, welcome to the Tales of the Struggle. Welcome to the Roaches and Ramen show. And if you have a story to tell, if you have a tale of the struggle, or you're going through the struggle, or you just want to chime in and know of a story that someone went through a struggle and you got to see it, you can write to us at roachesramen@gmail.com. Roachesramen@gmail.com. I repeat myself a lot with that, but it's because I want people to, I want it to engrave in their minds. So the moment that you do hear of, or you remember of a story, or you're like, hey man, remember the story of that one neighbor? Oh yeah, dude, you can write that down. Send it over to roachesramen@gmail.com, and we can definitely feature that. Anyways, I hope everyone's been having a great week. Oh, excuse me. Yes, it's hot everywhere. It's the middle of the summer. It's July 30th right now. Yes, I just stamped that. It's July 30th of 2026, and it's hot as balls everywhere. I hope everybody's staying hydrated and everybody's staying cool out there. I'd like to dedicate this podcast to the workforce out there. And if you're out there in the workforce, good job. You did it. You came back another day. If you're in traffic, light up that sick. Today's going to be a good one. If you're break, hit that pen jamming, because today's going to be a good one. If you're cleaning your house or cleaning or doing something, maybe you're just working on storage. I wish I had storage. If you're working on your storage, reorganizing your garage or something, then please turn it up. If you're working out, then hit it harder, because this is going to be a good one. Today is the second solo pod. Today we're going to start peeling the onion back. I was really nervous about this one. I know I said that the last time, maybe because it was my first time doing a solo pod. Even though it was nerve-wracking, I still had a great time just kind of finally getting myself out here and bringing the whole podcast idea to fruition, and kind of like the origins of what I wanted the podcast to be all about. And a lot of people were like, man, you should just write a story, but you should just freaking write a book. This is like a story sometimes when I hear you talk. And when podcasting came into my life, I'm like, nah, this is the best way to kind of get your story out there, and kind of just, I don't know. This podcast has been a journey where I can kind of talk about my past, my present, and my future, and being okay that everything's good now, and that like I could see life at with a better, with grace, I guess. That's the best way, because now that now that everything's settled, now that I'm living a life that I feel like I'm healthy, and that like I'm pursuing like my version of happiness with my family, with Lena and the kids. It's been great. It's been great to just kind of talk about it now. Now that the dust has settled, I guess this is part of what an audible legacy could be. And even though the origin of this was like, so what if this doesn't go anywhere, or this podcast, doesn't do anything, or doesn't become successful, which I want this to be successful. I want this show to be more than me. I want this podcast to be bigger than me. That it's not about me. It's about the struggle. It's about helping others. It's about building a community, right? To have that community come together and to want better, right? To motivate everybody to want better, to want be healthy, and to live a life where it's bountiful. It's bountiful because you feel better, because your kids feel better, because your wife will feel better, because you extend your life, and you get to kind of buy more time. The time that goes so quick in this life, man. I'm almost gonna be 43 years old. 43 years old, right? And yeah, the point is that I'm just happy to be here, and I'm glad that I'm able to share my story. And I can't wait for others to share their stories with me, and we can reminisce, we can motivate, and then we can maybe teach. Maybe maybe someone can learn something from this, podcast. You know, as of late, as of late, I've found a closer connection with God again from kind of leaving being religious, and we'll get into that as I unpeel my onion. But as I've gone closer, I feel blessed to know that in the end, if this could be a podcast where people can reflect and they can find their own peace, and sometimes in my realm that I believe in, or if someone believes that they can come and get closer to God or to their faith, in whatever faith it is, I think the outcome is that there, in anything faith based, is there's peace behind it. And you know, I don't have to say how bad the world is. The world's fucking crazy out there. It's shitty, right? But having a little faith sometimes goes a long way. Faith is probably the base of peace for me, and especially when I'm going to be talking about a lot of the turmoil and a lot of the darkness that came out of my life to kind of to build me and to forge me to who I am now, right? And that's what we're going to get into today. Man, today's going to be a good one. To me, today's going to be a good one because I know it's going to be a good one because this is the most nervous I've ever been in a long time, and I always, right before I went on stage, I would feel like that sense of panic right before you go on stage, and then right when you're ready to play, or you're ready to start playing whatever show you're playing, in whatever setting you're playing, the moment you play the first note, kind of everything just goes away, and you are in a total state of, almost like a state of, you're just, I want to say, what's a good word for that? A good word for that is like in a trance. That's good. In a trance that like you forget because you're in total, you're riding the joy of the moment. And then when you come back and when you're done with whatever you're playing, or in this case, the podcast, and then you listen to it back, you're like, dang, like I didn't even, whoa, right? So I don't know, guys. I want to excuse myself now about my rambling, but I think that's what podcasting is all about. Is, I don't even know if I should justify it or not, but it really is just kind of what it is. So yeah, again, I want to give this a huge shout out to people that are in the workforce right now. If you're in traffic, this one's for you. If you're cleaning, if you're working out, I'm glad you're with me. I appreciate everybody that's joining us and continues to join us. And thank you to anyone that's like, hey man, I'm gonna send this over to my friend because he needs to hear this podcast. Those people, I love you. Forever grateful. There's great things. There's big things coming up in the future. Lena and I, when I get back into town, Lena and I are going to get into kind of like what we're going to start evolutionizing ourselves to. We're really into it. One, it's a pleasure and an honor to know that I can have my podcast and share my podcast with Lena because it's ours. It's pretty much our podcast. It's been our little project. So when we get together and we talk about like the home team stuff, like what we're excited about, and then a hot topic here, hot topic there. She by default became a podcaster, so I'm really really proud of her for that. And yeah, I love you, babe. I miss you. Anyways, today we start the series, right? We start the series of me peeling the onion, right? This podcast, this podcast wouldn't have any context. It wouldn't kind of work in theory, I guess, if I didn't have my own stories to correlate to the struggle. So, I want to put myself out there, and I want to put my story out there so I can encourage others to come and write to roachesramen@gmail.com, right? And for you guys to share, reminisce, and then in conclusion, heal. This is healing to me. Talking about it is the way I'm healing, and the way I'm able to let the dust settle and kind of be okay and know that, look, even through that darkness, or even through that struggle, I'm able to become a better person. I'm able to become a better father, and I'm able to kind of navigate my kids, my son and my daughter, to being a good member of society and to have a prosperous life. And in the end, in our world, in our family, is it's going to be God first. It's going to be and then it's my wife, my kids, and I want them to understand that those are the values that I hold, and those are the values that I want to give my children. And I think I believe that generally that would be the value that everybody wants to give their kids, right? I'm assuming. But today is going to be it's a good one because I get to start talking about my story, and that's probably one of the main reasons why I've been a little nervous. And I didn't explain this on the last solo pod, is that I've having to produce a show, or just to kind of just note my notes down. I get to kind of really reminisce and really like dig back to the fondest memories. So today I'm going to introduce you to the most important person in my life, the one that where everybody's stories begin. Okay, every beginning of every story starts with your mom. It starts with mom. I tell my kids all the time, love starts with mom. So today I'm going to introduce you to one of the most powerful people in my book, and the person that really forged me out of iron, and that would be my mom. My mom, her name was Elvira Dominguez. That woman, right? So, but before I get into it, we get into my mom and getting into my story, I want to give a big old shout out, and I want to give I want to give a huge shout out to all parents, but most of all moms out there. Okay, there's a bunch of types of moms out there, all types of moms. Okay, I would like to shout out moms, mothers, grandmothers, foster moms. In some sorts, there's all types of moms. There's toxic moms, selfish moms, junkie moms, cheating moms, manipulative moms. Right? In that regard, there's good and bad, but they're still mothers. And in this world, your first love is your mom. So I want to give a big old shout out to all moms out there that are out there. This one's for you guys. Okay. So moving to my onion, and in the core of my onion is my mom, Elvira. Okay. And this woman, by far was the biggest thing, not just because she's my mom. And I know everybody's being like, well, if it's your mom, everybody thinks your mom, everyone's mom is like, my mom's the best. So she's the center. Well, yes, as it should be. Your mom gave birth to you. You know what I'm saying? She carried you. It's crazy as a freaking adult. It's crazy to know that women, whoa. If you want to talk about alien shit, women, women are the most alien thing out there. To see the birth of my daughter, that alone was mind blowing. And if you haven't, if and I know anyone that's a dad out there and that's seen their wife have your child or your significant other have your child, that's alone is so mind blowing that you can't wrap your head around life itself. But it's the most beautiful thing you can ever experience, right? So if that's my point of view as a dad, now I can sense what mothers go through with that attachment of knowing that, hey, your beginning starts with your mom. So all types of moms, right? You have mothers, grandmothers, foster moms. You guys are amazing. So this was, you know, because of you, moms, because of you, moms, we define what love is in the beginning, and and even with all those types of moms, there's nothing more powerful than a single mother out there. Because I've known many types of moms out there, but there's nothing more powerful than a single mother. Still to date, can I be biased? Yeah, but that's also the only example that I've seen all my life. And anyone that is either like or no it is part of or has been a part of a household where your mom or your dad. Let's not forget about the dads out there that are also single because they do exist. Shout out to you guys too. But in my case, I only saw a single mother. I saw my mom, right? And to me, she has been the first powerhouse in every fondest memory that I've had. She's been the biggest powerhouse that's been is my mom. Everything was powerful about her. And I think this for most of us. So this is how we see our mothers, right? We see our mothers as, like the caring, the grace of a mother, right? The discipline of a mother because she wants the best for you, because we scare, or because we scare them because we're either gonna get hurt. You know how it is when when a baby is a toddler, right? Dangers everywhere. Sharp edges are the dangers. So mom's always behind. No, que no. Watch out, right? And so, to many and to myself, our moms are the they're the first love because mom starts with my mom always used to say el amor empieza con tu madre. So love your mother since she was so meaning love starts with mom. So love your mother. She instilled that in me all the time, but with her grace, because she was also mom and dad for me. So it's there was a so when I think about the fondest memories of my mom, is that she was very loving, but she was also very strict, and I would find her love through her strength essentially, right? And I think it's as I peel her a little bit through my onion and through my point of view, you kind of understand why her dynamic was like that, But that's why she was so powerful. Everything was powerful about that one. Everything. She was a powerhouse. What I mean by a powerhouse, I believe that sometimes you have a mom, and then you have the mom that like is cool, and she's kind of like bland a little bit, and she's just kind of calm, right? There's those type of moms, right? They're just kind of like to themselves. Oh, see stuff, really mousy, right? But then you have powerful moms, right? Then you have like these big eccentric, full of life, full of like color type of mom. That was my mom. Everything was grandiose about my mom. Her laugh. Her laugh was grandiose. if there was a whole like get together a carne asada right there in the hood, and I was at, in the for example in the alley, and they were in the courtyard, I could hear my mom from the alley because her laugh was just so you could just hear it how it would roar. I think sometimes people, I think her laughing amongst others or with others, because of her laugh, it would just kind of amplify her laugh would amplify everybody's others laugh, and would just kind of like she was directing the laugh essentially, right? That was La Señora Elvira Dominguez. That was her. Her wisdom. She was really wise. She would just get it. She just knew how to hold court. You know, she was always talking to la doña or la comadre. Oh, pues tú, es que tú sabes, it's because you know, and this, and how it was, and now that we're adults and we're seeing our kids, and you know, I when Danny showed up in my life, I was told, hey, careful what you say around the kid, man. Careful how you say, because they're listening. Same thing with Olivia. Careful what you say. They're always listening. Don't cuss. Don't do this. Man, they do hear everything. They do listen. Because I now thinking about or remembering, remembering my mom or remembering Elvira, um, remembering her, like I started remembering what like her talks with people when I was getting prepared for this episode. I was remembering how what she would say and the things that she would say, like what us Mexicans call los dichos, the sayings. And it's crazy because I remember these powerful conversations that kind of like now when I hear them back or I try to just decipher their conversations, I get to hear like how they would talk almost in parables with their wisdom, you know? Kind of like que será será type of like what it is or what it was, you know. I don't even know que será será, what will be. That's what the song is, right? Oh, yeah. That's like things like that. They would just talk like that, you know? And they just it was just interesting how like the wisdom that she would bring to people, because a lot of people would use her as she was, I believe, like so you know how in the 90s they had all these shows, right? With these talk shows, these daytime talk shows, and for us Hispanics, we had in Univision we had Cristina. I felt like my mom was the Cristina, or maybe the Ricky Lake, if if I may, the Ricky Lake of the hood, because people would just come and talk to her about all their problems or their woes, and my mom had a way of just listening and then kind of giving advice, and it was just, I don't know, it could have been blind leading the blind, but for some reason there was comfort in that conversation, and they would always come over. She was social like that, so that was very powerful about her, right? Her patience. I was not I trust me, I wasn't the most easiest kid. I am lucky. And if Danny, Olivia, if you're listening to this, I got lucky because you guys are amazing. I have good kids. I have good kids partly because I'm using the wisdom in a more modern way, you know, using that legacy that or that wisdom that my mom left me, and I try to integrate it with my kids. And it comes with a lot of discipline. So yes, her patience. I remember that was very powerful of her. That's why she was in the powerhouse. She was my first powerhouse because of that. You know, when I start thinking about the fondest memories of who Elvira Dominguez was, who was this person that forged me, right? Her cleanliness. Man, she taught me that even though we're in the roaches and ramen place, and yes, the building is in like it's pretty much a roach motel, the apartment complex. She wanted everything clean. She wanted to fight that. That was her first war. It's like, fuck, dude, the elements of where we're at. But the rent is cheap. I remember these are 1997 prices from the apartment where we were living. We were paying, my mom was paying like $600 in rent. I think in the end, I think we were paying like $875. But those were cheap ass rates. That's a at least a good rent for the time, and those were the '90s, and that's what you would get with $600 here in the hood. In the hood, right? But at that time, oh man, that apartment was everything when my mom got it. She was so happy to know that she had made something of herself, but she wanted it clean, right? And we'll get that as we kind of uncover this story or this story of my onion. Her hard work ethic, man, man. Oh my goodness. Excuse me. So we're back. And so sorry about that. I got interrupted by a phone call because my daughter wanted to know if they could use their sleepy jams. That is the world of a parent. And I love them for that. And I should probably silence my phone. roachesramen at gmail.com. I'm still in the struggle. This is part of the struggle, but these are good struggles, right? These are good struggles. So Elvira Dominguez. So we're talking about my mom's hard work ethic. That if that's where I got it from, I got it from her. She was a powerhouse. She was a powerhouse in that way, right? She was a powerhouse because I saw that woman work from the moment that I can kind of remember what my childhood was to probably 12 days before she got diagnosed with cancer. Then she got really sick. And then we had to take her to the hospital. And then they were like, yep, you have cancer. Right? So I saw her work her behind off. Where now that I'm an adult, I could kind of see like, wow, she really did prep me for this. She really forged me with knowing that her hard work ethic was always there. Because her routine was nuts. At one point, if I can remember, her routine was like this, right? And I know my mom's not the only one. I know there's a lot of moms out there, those super moms out there that just, functioning moms out there. And this is why I say all types of moms, even though they are toxic, even though they are selfish and junkies and cheating moms and manipulating moms and just moms that just destroy, they're still moms. They still wake up as pissed as you're getting them, and as much they haven't had their coffee and their cigarette, they will still pour you a bowl of cereal or a bowl of kicks. She'll still do it. It's somewhere or another they're functioning. So yes, even them, right? And God bless them, right? But her hard work ethic was crazy because since I can remember, she worked hard as a waitress, and then she worked after that, and then I saw her come to the States, and then she like right away became a janitor and killed it in that, and then I saw her get her own little route, and she evolved to who she was. So even though we were in the hood, she wanted things clean. You can never not clean enough. You can never not. Oh my gosh, her biggest pet peeve: if she saw one sock in the living room that was probably mine, more not probably, it was mine, right? Even though even though like she would find it. Her biggest peeve was if I saw it, or or anyone would walk by it and wouldn't get picked up. You want to see veins coming out of her neck? That was it. You want to hear the biggest cuss words in Spanish so fast coming at you like a chancla? That was it. So her cleanliness was crazy. And we could never clean enough. There's always something to do. I'm pretty sure my kids would attest to that. Which led me to her discipline. Her discipline was unmatched. I can't even match it. And I'm 43 years old. How an 18-hour day is nothing for her. And that could be a whole schedule. That could be her work and then her being mom and then her getting up early the next day and continuing. That was it. I got to see my mom. Her discipline was crazy. So, and a lot of her discipline was she was really hard. She was really hard on, I think, on the older. She was really hard on the older sibling. She was not. She was pretty hard on me, but she knew that because we were unattended, there was no way for her to control me, and that's why I became who I became. I became a fucking menace. I became the guy that like, hey, don't jump on that pipe, it'll break, and then it breaks. I'm the guy that I was the kid that just didn't give a fuck and would talk back. At one point, I was really bad, right? But then she fixed that real fucking quick as we continue to peel the onion, right? Um, Most importantly, one of the biggest the powerhouse things that I know, or her attributes to being a powerhouse, was her confidence. She showed me confidence from the get-go. She knew that she needed to be mom and dad, so she needed to dad me, and a lot of her, and that takes a lot of confidence from her being a mom, and from her knowing that, hey, I'm a woman. I'm not a I don't I'm not a man, but I gotta get on this kid, and I have the confidence to do it because I don't want to raise no freaking weakling. She knew that she needed to rough me up, and it came a lot with her hard discipline. That her discipline, it was strength, discipline through strength. Te estoy diciendo, cabrón. Boom. Which I'm glad. And I know that if you're around my age, I know if you're my age, you can definitely be like, hell yeah, I'm so glad that I got kind of like smacked around a little bit, and that, I got the cinto and I was able to kind of experience pain. My mom would say in Spanish, I would say like, oh, it hurts, me voy a morir, I'm gonna die, like it hurts so much, and she's like, she used to say, you know what pain's about? And I'm like, what? Pain reminds you that you're still alive. Si te duele es porque te está tu cuerpo diciendo que todavía estás vivo. Pain reminds you that you're still alive. And I agree with that. And she definitely she gave us a sense of that pain. But I'm pretty sure it must have been hard. It must have been hard for her to do it. To know that you have to be mom and dad, and you have to and she was a big believer, or I guess the biggest example of discipline, praise, discipline, DPD. Discipline, praise, discipline. Or is it the other way around? Yeah, no. No, it was discipline, praise, discipline. And that was the way she was able to kind of navigate the love that she needed to instill in us. So she knock you outside the head, give you about 2 hours to recover, and then come back and then explain to me, do you don't understand why you had me do that, or why I did that? Because she would really never justify it. She would tell us why the fuck she did it, and that's it. So to have the confidence of knowing, damn, I got to raise 4 kids. In the end, it was 4 kids, right? It was the older sibling, it was myself, and it was a set of twins. And she had the confidence. And here's the thing, guys. As an adult now, I can now relate to that confidence she must have had, you know? Because as an adult, I stopped to think, I'm like, what type of confidence as a parent, let alone as a single mom, do you have to navigate the late 70s and the 80s? Like, how when people talk about the past, they're like, back in the day, it was a different time. You can just do this and do that. We would just treat people like this, people like that. And my mom would talk to me how women used to be treated back in the day, right? And I'm pretty sure if you're a millennial like myself, I'm in my 40s. I'm in my early 40s. If you were around my era, you could definitely you could correlate that saying, because times were different back then. I mean, back then, women were definitely seen as a lower class. You can't deny that, but it was an equal. Right now, there's more equality, even though we know that in the end, there's no such thing as equality with with mom and dad. With men and women, it's just different. It's just biology, right? I won't get into the gray areas of that. With whatever you believe, it's fine, but it's true. But in the end, back then, it must have been kind of crazy, because she would tell me about her upbringing. She would tell me about her struggles, right? So she had this. So she had enough confidence. She was forged through her struggle to have the confidence, from what I know, from what I knew, to be a mother of two at the time, right? A mother of two with kids under 10. And from what I knew, she was just a waitress at a famous restaurant called Carnitas Uruapan in Tijuana. Carnitas Uruapan, which is still exists. I went when I was doing the research. I was like, does it still exist? And if it doesn't, can I still find it? Because I know that it was a very popular spot, popular enough that I remember it, how it looked. Right. So I went on Google, and I did the research, and I saw the pictures of it, which I'll post them. I'll post them on the socials, and I started seeing it, and the moment I saw the pictures of Carnitas Uruapan in Tijuana, I remember the brick. I remember being in there. Um, I remember the smells, the sounds, the music. Everything came back to me. I remember the arches. It's those red brick arches that were in the interior. I remember the wooden the benches. I remember the tables, the way they were set up. I remember the smell of carnitas, which now now when I was remember, I was like, wow, now I remember that smell, that I connected. I remember when I first started in a kitchen, I would go in there, and there's that stale, like bleachy, uh, anyone that works in the in the kitchen or in the restaurant industry knows that you come from the back, and you always have that bleachy, like cold, grease smell, right? Because of the grease that just kind of goes everywhere. Just that steam becomes grease, evaporates, so just grease it, and that's why you get greasy walls, right? But over there, it smells like they have made carnitas all their lives, so it smells just like that fried pork, and it would smell like pine sol. Because I remember we would go pick up her check, right, and she would take my older sibling and myself, and I would just remember remembering those smells when I first stepped into a kitchen. I'm like, I remember it, and I can say it's like that was the carnitas urapan smell. You go through the back. I remember stepping on those big old mats, those slip resistant mats, right? The big giant mats with big old holes, dimes, no, like quarter size holes everywhere, right? It looks like it has that like it kind of look like the size of a bottle cap holes, right? These heavy mats. I remember stepping on them because they elevate you. And I remember them cleaning it and then being there, and it's still. I just remember the smells, the sounds of you. You walk in and all you hear is cumbia. You hear uh, Rigo Tovar. You hear Chente in the kitchen. You hear Juan Gabriel, El Juanga. Mostly it was cumbias. I remember that. Or I just remember there was always musicians. There was músicos. Señor, una canción. What would you request? Right. But most importantly, remembering the restaurant. I remember walking behind the restaurant, following my mom holding my hand, right, pulling me through, and I just remember that was her spot. She was called Virus or Virotes. That was her nickname for Elvira, or short maybe for Virotes. I don't know. I don't even want to get into the context of what Virotes could mean or what type of nickname that was that the cooks would give her. I don't even want to know, right? But I remember that place was like her own version of the American sitcom show called Cheers. That was like her Cheers. Remember the Cheers? And I just want to know. Everybody know. I can't really do that because I don't want to get flagged. Right? She walked in and everybody knew her. That I do remember. That was a vivid memory that I can recollect of her holding my hand. We're going in there because she's going to get paid. And she was like, oh, oye, virus. Oye, virote. Oye, chavita. And she was one of the guys. No mames, mi chavita. Yeah. She was getting, and she just knew how to chameleon herself through the people. She knew how to navigate the people. And I remember just kind of like taking it all in. And maybe it was just, I mean, maybe it was my 30th time being there, but this is just one of those memories that I just remember. Maybe part of the routine. But that was Canita Surapan. And I know she had the confidence enough to know that she could go in there and be the one that sucks the light out of the room. That's what I remember about the all powerful Elvira Dominguez. But she's the one, she's the core. She's the core to my onion. These are things that now as I think, I'm like, wow, she really did prep me for everything. She really forged me to become a powerhouse. And I know that for most, that's how we see that's how we see our moms, right? That's how we see our mothers. We see our mothers like as these powerhouses. They're the one and onlys. They're the one of ones. Moms are one of ones. That is one thing you can actually really say. But there's also moms out there that are just as special as your original mom. Not only, and this is huge. This is huge for me. Only because you're not blood doesn't mean that you're not family. And now I believe that now that I have Maana with me, God bless her, she really took that role where I feel like my mom picked her from her pocket and she's like, here, here's my son. Take care of him. And she took it on. She took on, and because of her, I don't have the void of not having a mother. So shout out to my mom, my current mom, foster moms, right? We were talking about all types of women. Anna Madrid. She's the best. She's my mom right now, and I love her. So shout out to her. So that, with all being said, I believe that that was my introduction to the life of servitude, by seeing my mom become a powerhouse, by seeing my mom kind of becoming like, or being the example of like someone that not only did I not only did I internally love her with everything that I was, because she was just, in the end, in the end of the day, her happiness and her joy was being in her house that she bought herself, because she put us in a good position. That when I look at anything that I can, my fondest memories, we were in a great position. We were in this. I want to say there's the suburbs. I'm not really sure. Maybe if you know, if someone knows, tell me. Write to me. If you know Tijuana, we were in a place called um Otay, Mesa de Otay, and I remember. I remember having like an airport nearby. Yeah, there was an airport near like us. Like I remember the end of our street, and then there was a main street, and then you would just see a fence, and you would see the airport, right? And that's where we lived. And then it's a little community called Mesa de Otay. But I remember we were living in a nice double deck home, and it was 2 story, but it was small and cute, I guess. Made out of freaking brick. Everything, not brick. It was not brick. It was cinder block. It was cinder block. But in the end, her happiness was being with her kids in her house. So how do I recollect that to servitude? I was introduced to servitude because I saw that she was a powerhouse in the service world. In the her being a waitress or a server, and her having her piece. Was it a simpler time? I don't know. I don't know. But now as an adult, I understand that, like, as parents, we try to do everything in our powers to give our kids comfort, right? And I think, that's a big accomplishment. And at that moment, at that time, because now that I'm an adult and I have my kids, like, I don't have it figured out. So I can only imagine if she probably didn't have it figured out, but she had this confidence, right? We're talking about that confidence. She had this confidence where she was like, I can navigate, I can raise these kids. At least she wasn't that type of mom where she's like, fuck my kids, let them fucking figure it out. Which I know people that have stories like that. Introduction to servitude, because I knew she liked serving people. That was like part of her happiness. And in the end, that was what made her career. And in the end, she would come home to her kids, to her house that she earned to herself. So I don't know if times were simpler, but she was able to do it as a waitress. Or was she a survivalist? I don't know. I don't know. Because there's some times I'm like, how did she freaking do it? With 2 kids in the 80s. She had a car. She had like this little like blue Pinto looking car that we ended up getting a really bad car accident in, by the way. That was my first big thing of big traumatic um memory of being in Tijuana, is that car accident. It happened in from what I remember, I guess a water truck hit us, like one of those water delivery trucks. And in Mexico, I think even now I don't see them as much, but those water delivery trucks, the ones that give you the 5 gallon waters that deliver, kind of like spring water or like the sparkles or sparklets or whatever, those type of companies that come over to you, and then they drop off water, drinking water, uh, purified water, or sometimes spring water. but they bring it over to you to deliver it. Those bottles were glass bottles back then. So I remember a little tiny car. She got hit. I remember being afraid of her for the first time because we got in the car accident that was near the house, about 2 blocks away from where we lived, and that's the first time that I saw my mom get real hurt. Like she was bleeding. I remember that they had to I think the bomberos or the first responders, what we call firefighters, um, they had to cut the door. And I remember I was shaking. The neighbor took us to their house. They were feeding me sugar and a lemon. They had me suck on a lemon. I don't know what that was all about, but I just remember that being very vividly. But she had a car. She had her own car by herself, and I remember once that vehicle was done, we started taking the bus. She just had to figure it out, right? And and I with all this being said, I just know that it was like I was mentioning earlier. I lost my mom to cancer, and before she passed, like the last 6 months before she passed, I had the honor of getting to know my dying mother essentially, because she was dying, and she prepped me for the struggle by her talking about her struggles, right? Because she came up from a really crazy ass struggle, so she's from the state of Chiapas in Mexico, which if we were just talking about Tijuana, if we were to look at a map, Tijuana is pretty much the bordering town to San Diego in Southern California. That's when Baja California starts, and that's Lower California, right? And so Chiapas is in the butt, and pretty it's a state that borders Guatemala. So let's start kind of let's kind of go a little deep on that one. So let's put that into perspective. She is now in Tijuana, but her origin of story is in Chiapas, which is down south of Mexico. So is it confidence, or was she just built tough? That's what I want to know. So what did she have to do? She told me her struggle. So when she these this whole time that I got to know her when she was on her deathbed, she was she told me her stories, and just kind of to touch a little bit, her struggle was this: she had problems with her dad, to whom I carry the Dominguez name. Went with Mr. Dominguez, right? So my grandpa, I don't know if he was abusive. I don't know what kind of dude. They live in these fucking little villages, and the stories that I hear about some of these Mexican cultures and the old way, or los tiempos viejos, los tiempos antiguos, the antique days, the old times. I don't know what it was. I just heard a bunch of scary stories about men being perverted men, right, in those times. So I don't know if there was an uncle that was being touchy. I don't know if my grandpa was a touchy man. Okay, all I know, all I know is that there was abuse. Maybe there was physical abuse. My mom really didn't go too deep, or at least I may not remember. But I do remember her telling me that she left really early from her house. Something happened in that household that she said, "Fuck you, fuck this, everyone here," and she left. And I know that they're like, if you walk out that door, you are never to come back, right? That's just kind of like, I'm pretty sure every parent would say that, but in the Mexican culture, in the Hispanic culture, chinga tu vida, and you are on your own. So she left her house at 14, right? I know you guys heard me on that one. I have a really beautiful mic here. She left at 14. Now imagine yourself as a 14-year-old, okay? We talked to Lena about this as of recent, because Danny's 14, right? And I can't, you can't even put these three generations of 14-year-old lives in the same universe, right? Danny's 14-year-old self is eons away from my 14-year-old self when I was selling weed, when I was running amok, when I wasn't coming home. But at the same time, I was doing music, being in the music programs, still going to school, still doing that whole thing, but still running amok. Running amok because I was just not listening to my older sibling, because why would I? She was a terror, right? And, or at least at that time, that's how I would look at her. I was just immature and I was just say, fuck this, fuck you, whatever you say, right? Versus my mom's 14-year-old self, where she's like, I'm homeless now and I have to figure it out. I don't even want to know if people say, "Oh, the old times," what she had to do as a little girl. This is a little girl, guys. 14-year-old self. That's a baby out there in the fucking world. She said she went from Chiapas, ended up in Mexico, in La Ciudad de Mexico, Mexico City. I know she got it. She must have done whatever type of job. Again, what does a 14-year-old do with strangers, with adults? What is there to do? One can only imagine, and I don't even want to imagine. Right? Regardless, she she got opportunity somewhere. I know she had like some type of a foster mom. Someone took her in. Right? Someone took her in and was able to kind of teach her discipline, teach her kind of how to be like civil, and then she ended up getting a job, um, in as a stewardess in bus lines, what like Greyhounds are today, right? In those times, working with the public as a youngin. Talk about that struggle. Talk about that type of broadband a 14-year-old would have, or someone that's in their mid-teens working to make a living. That's the type of resiliency that forged her, and so she forged me. She honestly prepared me for the struggle. She prepared me before she died, to know that I was going to be homeless and how I was going to navigate that, and how I should figure it out. It's as if like after she died, my whole life became a whole escape room, and I had to escape each and every um, episode of my life. I had to just escape the struggle. However, but I did. So I knew she was successful in her field, right? And I knew she had aspirations of being something more of herself. I really never asked her in the end. I never really asked what she really wanted to do, but I for sure knew she didn't want to end up in the States as a janitor lady. But she did have a purpose, right? And that purpose was myself and my older sibling. Because there's a mission. She taught me that, hey, kids are the mission. And if it wasn't, and at one point, she went from giving us comfort to thinking that she's gonna make a better move, a better decision. And at that time, I knew, I can now admit that as a 40-something-year-old, as a 43-year-old, or about to be 43, and with Lena, Lena and I are barely like we're figuring it out. Right, we're figuring out this whole having a teenager and having Olivia, under 10, figuring this whole parenting thing out, but we're out here doing it. We have the confidence to do it. If I didn't have that confidence, if Lena didn't have that confidence, that knowing like, hey, we're going to lead our kids to become better people and to just prepare them for the world, then we would be failing our kids. Right? But they are my purpose. The kids are the purpose. They're the mission. So if you're a youngin and you're listening to this, you are your parents' mission. That's why they get on you. That's why they're like, hey, if you're gonna be here, don't fucking just be here playing video games all day and jerking off. Go out there and have a job. At least justify that you're gonna do that. That you're gonna be playing and jerking off, but at least pay the rent, pay the internet. Like, have a purpose. So we were the purpose. But that's a little bit of background of how that was her struggle, and how even though at that moment she felt like, hey, we have comfort. There was a time that with her success, and I know she was pretty successful in Mexico, that she was like, okay, things are going good. And then she wanted more of herself. And then she got an investment with another land. Then she had to go from putting this into comfort to all of a sudden a situation complicating itself and then leading us into discomfort. And then, in my personal view, I believe that that's when God was like, "Hey, I'm gonna prep your kids because something's happening. There's something happening." And something clicked in her where she's like, "If not for me, I'm gonna need to make something happen for myself." And maybe at that moment was like, "I'm gonna invest in some land." Maybe, and it felt to me, now that I look back at it, was it irrational? I don't know. We don't know. She said it wasn't when I asked about it. She said it was for a more opportunity, but it complicated itself. Something got complicated where, in the end, we ended up in the United States. And I believe that when we ended up in the United States, her intentions, all parents' intentions are good, and we went from having comfort to discomfort to even more discomfort to now foreign discomfort. But that's kind of like the beginning of the story of my story. My story begins with her, just as love begins with mom, right? With that being said, we know on the next solo episode, I'm going to kind of talk about and I'm going to break down that discomfort that we're talking about. I just kind of wanted to describe and give you an introduction of who my mom was. You know, I I'm assuming this. I just think that it was in confidence. I think that she was raised in the '60s. Um, you know, kind of grew up in the '70s, became a mom in the late '70s, '80s, and I think the only thing she had at the time of despair and any hope was just type at that moment was the feminist culture. That feminine culture, that feminist culture that I could do it by myself. Which at the moment it just seemed like a right thing to do because that's the only hope she had, right? And she became resilient and she became a powerhouse. And I'm glad. I'm glad there's women like that out there. I'm glad that I was blessed and God blessed me with that type of mom. Because I know there's many types, right? We discussed this. And whatever type of mom you have, like, you're still your mom. Every story begins with mom. Love starts with mom. And again, I tell my kids that all the time. And if you're young and you just know that when you have kids, they are the mission, right? And as I peel the onion, I know that my mom wanted the best, but and even though things complicated themselves, she meant well, and she knew that regardless if it's not gonna be for me, because fuck what she wants, at least I can give my kids a better life. And if not my kids, she knew one day she was gonna be a grandma, and I can thank her for that, and I can even thank my mother-in-law Lita for this because of their hard work, right? Of their hard work, they came to the States, maybe put us in discomfort, right? But at that moment, fuck what we want. If not for you, my grandkids, they did it for our grandkids, and that's when my kids live the life that they can live. That's why my boy's 14-year-old self, compared to his grandma's, is universes away. And that's the point of this solo pod. It's this is the woman that forged me. I am forged because of this woman. I'm forged because I was able to see a powerhouse. I was able to survive and navigate my struggle that we'll get into as you stay tuned. And as you join me on the next episode of Roaches and Ramen. And if you have a story that kind of like myself, please write to us at roachesramen@gmail.com. I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it. That's why, guys, love your mama. And give a shout out to your mom after you hear this. Or go hug your mom if you have her. And if you don't, go to the cemetery, drop her some flowers. I know my mom's not here anymore, but if I want to see my mom, all I have to do is either look at my kids or look at myself in the mirror, and I can hear her voice through my kids. I can hear her voice through my sayings, through my mannerisms, through sometimes my younger sister's mannerisms, and the way she is with her kids. Love through strength, right? Guys, I am blessed. I am blessed to know that I am here with you guys and that I was able to spend this hour with you guys. And I'm blessed to know that you guys are even still on. I can ramble. I can sometimes not get to my point, but at least I know that I can join you guys once a week and kind of share my story. And I can't wait to hear other people's stories. Jeez. roachesramen@gmail.com. Don't forget to love your mama, guys. And again, love yourselves before you love others. And please live generously. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.